Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show.
Our company is called Mission Matters. We are a multimedia platform. Our goal is to amplify the mission and purpose of entrepreneurs, executives, business owners in the hopes of inspiring and educating future generations or other business owners that are in the trenches working so that they can learn from one another or learn from their peers for that matter. With that, we've basically built up an author network. We have book publishing services. We've recorded over 3,500 podcast episodes through our podcasting division. Adam's been on all those podcasts, so he's recorded a lot of content. Along with that, we've had a lot of inspiring authors in our network, most of whom here are business owners or executives, bring in decades of experience from different industries. And so you guys will all get a chance to learn from each of them. And I want to start off, I think, with the brief introduction from everyone, but I'll let Adam kind of take the reins from here. And then maybe we can just go in order and then have each author introduce themselves in like 30 seconds. And then we'll start asking some questions for the group. With that, Adam, feel free to take the reins.
All right. Thank you, Chirag, and thank you for the introduction and doing all you do to get everybody here. I'll tell you, as I look at these pictures, I'm like, we have the whole gang here. Carolyn, I haven't seen you in so long. Kurt, Todd, come on, Lisa, John, this is awesome. Bill, this is just great. So I'm excited about today's topic because this is something that we've worked through as a company ourselves. I mean, our team is everywhere from Philippines, Argentina, India, UK, New York. Chirag's on the other side of LA, so we might as well call that another place too. We don't see each other that often, so that counts on the other side of downtown. So excited to have everyone here. Again, this is a different type of format than maybe what we've done in the past for those of you that are maybe newer to Clubhouse. So I'm not going to be asking a ton of questions. This is completely fireside chat style. Want people to chime in, want people to not be shy here, but let's just kick it off with maybe just going in order by name. We'll go alphabetical, and just to make it really easy. So I believe that would be Carolyn first. Yes.
Hey, Adam. Hi, everybody. I'm Carolyn Bart. My company is Digital Content Strategy, and big fan of Adam's. I can't believe you're not going to ask us questions, but I love your questions. And Chirag and Jessica, and I like the topic. Excited to kind of check out this platform a bit. So I was one of the authors featured in Women in Business, and I talk about authority marketing, and I do a lot with super digital strategy as well as guaranteed media placement and building their brand, personal and professional, at the more individual level, but more institutional clients these days, just do the other one for fun. So great chatting with everybody.
So great. So this is my first ever event at Clubhouse. So I'm excited. And I was excited to be able to come and have the first interaction in the platform with you. I am the founder of We're All Human. And my contribution to the book was on Latinas and how our community in the US is so massively important for the development of the country. And like Latinas create 6 times faster than any other group in America, has more businesses, and yet we're not recognized as a group that is underrepresented, misrepresented, and undervalued, the least paid of every single group in America. And we work hard. We're hard workers. And in this pandemic has put a huge burden on women in general, but in Latina especially. So it's not only that we have 20 hours more workload than normal, not only we work in the house and on our work, but 20 more hours overall that we have to do. We're doing that with a huge amount of pressure, financially, health-wise, and so on, multi-generational families living together. We went into virtual working. By definition, not everybody had that luxury. Only 15 to 16% of Latinos have the luxury of actually being able to stay at home, because most of us are essential workers and we have to go out and work in delivery and work in food and so on. But virtual for many people and for us had allowed the Latino community to get together in ways that I haven't seen before. We created Hispanic Star Hubs all around the country virtually, where people come and started like organizing themselves in networks of support that were able to deliver relief support for the Latino community. 1.5 million families were supported by volunteers in 30 cities. And that happened organically, organized virtually. And then just like the delivery of the food was done in person with the support of hundreds and hundreds of volunteers. For me personally, having a team in 6 different cities, New York and Minnesota and Des Moines, but also Mexico, Guadalajara, Argentina, it meant actually more efficiency. We grew 70% this year with increased margin and everything. And I think that the key for us was making sure that the culture wouldn't actually be diluted and that we had communications up and down. So people complain about so many meetings, but I think it's essential to every morning, everyone meeting for 15 minutes, having virtual office hours available for everybody to be able to chip in case there's a need, and conducting some basic, some basic training on the home, work-life balance, social activities within the team, encouraging everyone to stand up in between meetings. So yeah, that's us.
I think, is my alphabet right? Am I next? I'm Lisa, and I just want to give a moment of gratitude for Adam and Chirag, because they were actually two people that helped me first find my voice. I'm a recovering employee of 25 years in recruiting and transitioned to America's matchmaker and business matchmaker, that is. So now I help families move around the cash flow quadrant by creating their own businesses from home. And I'm just so blessed to be here and be part of this community. I actually just had my welcome party tonight to Clubhouse, so this is perfect timing. And I am not able to stay long, but I so appreciate you, both of you, Adam and Chirag, and look forward to getting to know all of you. Please follow me and I'll follow back.
All right, I think it's John next, yeah.
So John Paniagua, I presently run our work at the New York Stock Exchange full time. I've also started a multifamily syndication business, investing in offerings outside the New York area. So right now, I live in Queens, New York, but I've closed 3 deals last year by doing a joint partnership with a sponsor. So I'm help create a sponsor network, and I'm looking in the process right now of creating a fund, multifamily fund, to pretty much to fund deals that sponsors bring to me. So I'm going to vet out the deals and then, invest outside the New York City area. So last year, like I said, I closed on 3 deals, 100 units each, 2 in the Southeast Virginia area, very nice. And then the other one is Savannah, Georgia. And I got 3 deals they're going to be brought to me probably within the next 2-3 weeks, and they're off-market deals, so I'm busy with that. So essentially, I've been putting in 100-hour weeks, to say it lightly. But I'm hoping pretty much to scale up the multifamily syndication business, and then I could leave finally my W-2 job and then continue growing that business.
Awesome, John. Thank you. All right. And then am I right on this one? Who's after the J? I think that's the K. Come on. Kurt? You there, Kurt?
Yeah, that'd be me. Sorry.
All right. Good to see you, Kurt. I'm like, when I saw today's topic, and I was like, hey, Chirag, do we have Kurt on the line? Because he's king of virtual and I'm scaling these things. So glad to have you on. And that's who I'm always bugging. Like, hey, how do I do this, Kurt? So I'll let you talk.
Yeah, well, thanks. We were work from home well before it was cool or necessary or survival to be, I guess, work from home. And it was really because, well, two things, and Adam knew this story, but I've been an entrepreneur for 16 years, and in the recession of whatever year you want to call it, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is how long it lasted for me. The lights almost went out. Mortgaged my house about 1,000 times, ran up massive credit card debt. I just did anything to stay alive and to stay in business. And I made a pledge to myself at that particular time that I wasn't ever going to go back and have massive fixed cost overhead, which comes with a lot of, payroll, employees, and so on and so forth, big fancy buildings and the like. And that I would also go into a type of a business or vertical or serve an industry that was more or less recession proof. And you might say, well, what is that? The government? Well, no, it's not. It's insurance. So all our customers are enterprise level health insurance, Medicare insurance, life insurance, carriers, brokerages, IMOs, FMOs, big companies that have a lot of wherewithal to withstand any kind of a blowback from a recession. But then also people still need those products regardless of, a pandemic or anything of the sort. So net of everything is I decided that if I'm going to have this type of a model, I'm going to really leverage great global talent and not exploit it, but just leverage it, essentially import it to service U.S. secure customers. And everybody wins. We pay a lot of people a lot of money in their local currencies in Ukraine, Estonia, Serbia, India, Philippines, and then we're in 7 states here in the United States. And these folks all work in those other time zones, India and such, till 4 or 5 a.m. But they work till 6 p.m. our time, which whatever time it is there, but they have to serve East Coast in order to work for us. So it's worked extremely well. We just had a huge Zoom this morning, and it blew my mind. Adam, since even I spoke to you last summer, we doubled our payroll. And Claudia, congratulations, Claudia, too, because COVID was really as tragic and horrible and everything that it is. It was the best thing that ever could have happened to our business. We doubled in size last year, top line and bottom line. And I don't, gauge growth by number of employees, but the bigger you get, the more employees that you need. So it all worked out really well. So yes, I know what it is to have a home or work globally and so on and so forth. And thank God for Zoom and for Skype video and for WhatsApp and for, we Skype each other and everything. Any technology that allows you to be in real-time contact with these people, it's pretty fantastic. So sorry, a little long-winded, but thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome. Margarita is next. Margarita, good to see you.
Hi, good to be here. So the name of my firm is Blue Ocean Global Wealth, and I am by no means at current level when it comes to working virtually, but I have always put things in place. I remember back in the day, before I became an entrepreneur, our bosses said, you guys have desktops. I'm like, that's fine. I love this desktop. It stays in the office, and I bought myself a laptop. People are like, you're not going to get reimbursed. I'm like, I don't care. So I think it's so important, the type of work I do. I am a certified financial planner. It has been very difficult on people, but the one thing I can honestly say is I have not had a single client yell at me, scream at me, displace my anger. I've actually found myself helping people navigate the technology to be able to work from home more efficiently or take care of their kid or caregive for the loved ones from afar. My financial planning software has screen share built in, so I can have conversations with clients as though we're sitting right next to one another. In fact, some clients really like it so much they're like, my goodness, we don't really need to do in-person meetings anymore. So I want to make sure I don't talk too much because I want to hear from everyone else.
All right. Thank you, Margarita. And Rita, there she is. So good to see you today.
Good to see you too. Hi, everyone. So I'm Rita. I'm a diversity, inclusion, and career strategist, and I helm a company called UMA, which is really an empowerment platform for women and minorities looking to regain confidence, build up their personal and professional success, and really build resilience and leadership qualities in the workforce. Do a lot of corporate training, a lot of coaching and mentoring. And I also do a lot of speaking at conferences in different locations around the world, really. I also host my own TV show called The Uma Show, which empowers South Asian women. And that's a little bit about what I do. In terms of the pandemic and the impact on the business, it's actually grown, other than initially when there was a little bit of a lull, March, when everything kind of went in lockdown. I think from mid-April onwards, everything had really sort of skyrocketed because all of my work, where I used to travel, I'm being a lot more efficient. I can do a lot more global conferences now and be in many locations at the same time or an hour apart in different parts of the world in a day, which I couldn't have done before. So these are sort of things we're seeing a lot of. And yeah, just really being impactful in helping these incredible women and different sort of minorities around the world with their diversity inclusion strategy. Love what I do. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rita. And then we have Todd next. Todd, good to see you.
So my name is Todd Fine. I am president of a company and one of the owners of a company called Wintellect. We're based in Atlanta, but we do work nationwide and actually around the world as well. We are a high-tech firm, custom software and cloud and training on those two topics. We've won a lot of awards. We work with Microsoft all the time. I'm what's called a Microsoft Regional Director, which is a weird term I won't go into, but we won awards like the Worldwide Microsoft Channel Partner of the Year Award and all that kind of stuff. So we're very tight in that Microsoft cloud and application development world. We've been at Wintellect for about 15 years. Started up the consulting division in 2005 and then eventually became CEO and owner of the company. So that's kind of what I've been doing. The kind of current context is that since the pandemic hit, I'm sure like a lot of us have had quite a roller coaster ride. We just were like, wow, this could just put us out of business. And I had many friends in the industry that were other owners, and some of them no longer exist. I had one in Australia that he laid off 50% of his employees and lost 50% of his customers. I had a couple of friends that were owners of companies whose primary customers were either the airlines or retail, like Macy's. And, obviously, huge impact to them. So we kind of went into preparedness mode and took out rotating lines of credit and did all this kind of stuff. And the end result was that we actually grew in the last year and made quite a bit of hires. So it was quite a pleasant surprise. There's some reasons for that when we were talking, Adam, about being virtual and remote, is that we built the company and the culture from the start to be fully remote. And by that, I mean, everybody from the beginning worked from home and occasionally came into the office if they felt like it. And 90% of the work for our customers is done remotely, with the one exception of training, which was almost 100% in-person live instructor training. But about a year and a half ago, because of demand, we figured out how to do the training virtually, had the right tools. So when the pandemic hit, we converted all but one customer to remote virtual training because we had already just started doing it. So we got lucky, but in the meantime, I've been actually not, let's say about, it's a 1/10% a level of Adam. I've been kind of been asked to do podcasts and presentations anywhere from an NDC conference in Oslo to just remote podcasts. And I created one that was called Regional Directors in Pain, where we all get together, all business owners like yourselves, and we just brainstormed and shared our experiences of how you're handling it and what we're seeing and how we can help each other. I just did another one last week, a partner called C-Sharp Corner. So I've actually been doing these kinds of podcasts on this exact kind of topic, remote growth, just handling remote virtual companies and the effects of the pandemic for really this entire last year. So that's one of the reasons when this call came up, I'm like, this one I should join because that's kind of the world I've been in for the last year. But I'll stop there.
Awesome. Thank you, Todd. And I guess as the saying goes, we save the best for last. Is that right, Dr. Troy Hawk? Come on.
Hey, man, I really appreciate that, Adam and Chirag. Good to be chatting with you again. As Todd was the voice of radio, people tell me I have a face for radio. So I feel like, maybe that'll just be my call to fame here. So, I'm really excited because, getting to know the two of you, and I have the distinction of being one of the first Mission Matters book launch
and very happy to be a part of that. I'm really known as a talent retention strategist and executive coach. I have worked with individuals to help create cohesion cultures, which is the subject of the first book I wrote, which is Cohesion Culture, Proven Principles to Retain Your Top Talent. And the idea behind that is to really put some meat to the concept that employees are a company's greatest assets. And many times leaders will say that, but what do they do? And so cohesion culture is about creating a place where people have a sense of belonging, where they are valued and they have mutual commitments. And Rita talked about that from diversity and inclusion. So I know that we have a lot in common in the way that cohesion can actually impact a team, whether it be virtual, in-person, or hybrid. And so I'm excited about being on the call and looking forward to information and getting some new knowledge, because my number one mantra is you don't have to know everything. You just need to be teachable.
All right,
Amazing.
thank you.
I think Nabil may have been forgotten. Nabil, can you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, yeah, sure. Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Nabil, and I am the founder of Black Grid SEO. We are a company that helps clients or businesses to basically leverage search engines such as Google, Yahoo, and Bing to be able to get more traffic and business to their websites or their social platforms. I started a business about 6 years, I would say, in 2015, right after graduation in Los Angeles, California. And I'm currently in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, to expand the team and the business here. So I'm managing the team from here and also in LA and Cleveland, because those two are basically two places that my employees are basically more focused in. And I was actually part of the Money Matters, the first real estate book that Adam and Chirag started as well. So in that book, I wrote specifically about how to use search engine optimization for real estate investors and real estate professionals to not just wait for the effects of SEO to come in the long term, but also at the same time, you can get business deals from doing SEO in the short term as well. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to speaking to each and every one of you.
Thank you for that, Nabil. I know.
No worries. I got dropped to just now, and then I came back in. That's why.
Oh, okay. That could have been it.
Adam,
So we rearranged. Go ahead.
Adam, I just wanted to say one thing. I realized I didn't mention it's been helpful for our company on the virtual team side. And I will tell you, first of all, I've been recruiting for 25 years. So I can't tell you how many years candidates have been coming to me. And always the question is, can I work remote? And we know that this has forever changed our workforce. Forever. One of the things that we do in our company, and we now have over 60, I think we're 66 right now in a short amount of time, is we share how we serve others every single day. And so it's really a goal in our company to find something we can do for someone else every single day and then share it with others. And it goes back to my recruiting roots when I would counsel people in transition that, that can be such a lonely and difficult time in life, especially when they've been laid off. And I always would tell them, go and get your volunteering in, take this gift of time and serve your community. And I promise it'll help you through this difficult time. So it's been a lovely addition to how we serve our community at Lisa Williams Co.
Awesome, Lisa. Thank you. So I'd like to maybe start this off with, so a lot of different ways that you can peel this one back. So when we're thinking about virtual teams, whether we want to talk about technology, whether we want to talk about culture, whether we want to talk about maybe a company that had no virtual and is now transitioned to virtual, not necessarily by choice, but because they had to. Then there's also companies that started virtual and just had that culture kind of ingrained because that's where they had their inception. And that would be the category that we fall into, because Chirag and I, we've always been virtual with everything we've done. But I'd like to maybe let's start with the culture aspect, because this is something that you can sometimes Google software to figure out software, things like that. But maybe everybody shares some things that they've done within their team or their organization that they feel is of benefit or unique culture-wise that just makes for a cohesive team.
So I'm really trying my very best to create parallels to for a company that I once worked for
that grew enormously huge. I was a corporate executive at the time, and I took copious notes at the time for when I ever started my own business. I was going to do things like that. And one of the things that we had, which you wouldn't have thought you could have replicated, globally with a million time zones and languages and cultures and everything else, is like an all hands on deck employee meeting. And I say this because it's fresh in my head and everybody's pretty excited because we just had one this morning. And it's really kind of neat because every time we meet, every 2 or 3 months, the Zoom boxes get tinier and tinier, which means that we have more of us, which is kind of cool. But see these faces, all different races, ethnicities, and cultures, and religions and languages is really pretty amazing. But to Dr. I think it's John's point, belonging and feeling proud of what you do and having purpose and that it means something and it's not just about making money. We try to accomplish that in these meetings. And that's the real human element because we're just rapid fire all day long, globally, customers, and we almost don't even, it's not like you can meet in the break room or at the, downstairs gym or in the deli in the corporate building. You don't see these people. So it's one of the times we get together, and I didn't realize how impactful it really was. We just kind of did it on a whim. And the feedback and response we got is amazing. That, a lot of these people they're home and they're alone and they're isolated. And yeah, they're talking to our customers and that sort of thing, but not talking to each other. So they don't really have that esprit de corps, camaraderie, whatever the word is, to really feel like they belong to something. So we even then went so far as to, we got one huge Skype room, and it's called the All Colby Family Room. And whenever there's a birthday or somebody has a baby or somebody has a cool announcement or somebody has an anniversary, any kind of a recognition of them as a human being, with a personal life of their own, other than just, you're a cog in a wheel, whatever kind of employee. So those things maybe seemed a little small at the time, but through COVID, particularly and especially, it is really glued and bonded the organization together. As much as you can have a virtual culture, I think we've started to create one.
Oh man, I love this, Kurt. It's a great tip, and just so everybody knows, the reason why Chirag and I are having these calls is really just to get free consulting. That's it. So thank you, Kurt. I'm taking notes as you said that. So Chirag, we need a Skype room so we can announce anniversaries, babies being born, and birthdays, and also we need an all hands on deck meeting. So thank you for all of your knowledge there, Kurt. And I'm going to continue to take copious notes. Who else has some nuggets for us?
Just wanted to add, I love everything that Kurt just shared. I mean, culture is our bread and butter, what we do. And I think there's just so many different ways of addressing culture. It's such a big concept. So traditionally, culture is, who we are. It makes each of us individuals, our backgrounds, our beliefs, where we were born, where we might have traveled to. That is kind of our DNA. On a workplace front, a lot of people picture culture as, it's the team you're working at. What is the feel? What is the banter in the team? Another way of thinking of culture is, what is the senior leadership? What do they believe in? What does that filter down further down as the ranks go down? The other part of culture is grassroots. So it's who are the masses down below that are defining the everyday values of what's going on, and that is the culture. So the personal cultures, and traditionally we always had a separation in our personal lives and our own personal upbringings in our culture and corporate culture, which used to be a very separate concept. You used to keep your personal and your professional lives completely separate. Then came COVID and quarantine and all of these Zoom, Webinexes, Skypes, all of these, and now everything is intertwined. So I think culture has now become a beautiful thing. Everybody's thinking about it, even when companies or managers had previously not understood the importance or meaning of what does it mean to be an inclusive manager? What does it mean to try to enforce a sense of belonging in your team, to be a decent manager? Now they're automatically doing it by virtue of having all of these remote meetings. So I think it's a really beautiful thing. A lot of what we've been advising companies on is really just getting the sort of personal moments and being okay and vulnerable to talk about a little tiny personal nugget of something in your life to open up the forum so that the rest of your team feels comfortable also doing that. Because it's the time where, people do feel isolated. For one, I love traveling and now I'm not. So for me, it's like, you feel cooped up and so many people do. So getting that sort of feeling where other people can share that they are feeling the same way helps people understand that, I'm not the only one. This is a normal reaction, and different people might have different ways of, sharing and going through the same reactions. So this is something I just love this topic, and keen to hear what others say on it too.
Yeah, absolutely, Rita. I agree with you and the comments that were made before. And, I made a career on cohesion culture, so I guess it would be remiss if I didn't speak on that a little bit. And so, one of the things, the vulnerability of the senior leadership team is really important, and leading from the CEO down. 3 things that actually are necessary for this culture to actually survive, and it requires that unity. And so the 3 elements for this cohesive culture, and really looking at the way the harmonious activities of that group is belonging, a sense of belonging, not just fitting in, but to actually believe that you are part of something, and that you have value because what you do is meaningful work, and people want to know that what they do is meaningful. And so working with executive leaders and making sure that they connect the dots for the activities that people do. It's not just about saying attaboy, attagirl, but about connecting what that specific task was to someone else in the organization, or to the end desired result, the consumer, and what the consumer receives as a part of doing it. And then in shared mutual commitments, one of the things that I do is I work with leaders to say, how do you commit first to the employee before you ask them to commit to your goals? It's not just enough that you have created an employment contract, so to speak, or you've given them an opportunity for a job, but what do you do about their development? 63% of all employees who come into an organization today want some form of advancement, growth, or development. And that conversation needs to be handled not only from the recruiting staff, but it has to be handled once you're inside the 4 walls, to make sure that you have build that trust that it's truly going to happen. And so there are a lot of little different activities and things that can happen. But the 3 main things that need to occur within an organization to really make sure that their culture is intact and working is, 1, it has to have honesty. The culture itself has to be built on something that's real. It has to have the CEO and senior leadership support, and it has to be so easy for people and so comfortable for people that they will live it, breathe it, and own it. And then some of the activities, and I like the activity that you talked about before, so I'm just going to give you one that I work with clients to actually do, and that is to have a morning huddle, and to actually do it virtually. And what they do is you have a designated time. Let's say if you want 9 o'clock to be your standard starting time, someone opens the call at 8:45, and people just start coming into the Zoom meeting, much like the way they would come into the office. Not everybody showed up at one time. It can even be earlier time to start the call, but at least 15 minutes. And there's no set agenda. It's just people talking when they come in. They have their coffee cup. Sometimes they share what's on their slogan on their coffee mug, and then it becomes a contest to say, who can have the craziest coffee mug. And just the laughter and the opportunity for people to have that camaraderie. It is so important, because we are designed as people to belong to one another, to have that interaction. It's part of our DNA. And so that's what I will contribute at this point.
One of the things that I think that we did that was very special, so of course I have my full-time job, but I also coach running. And one of our running is the one thing that we can do where everyone is safe. And she's pregnant, so it's very hard for her to socialize because the risk. Well, what we did is we had a virtual baby shower for her. I understand that coming together is not quite the same, but we surprised her, and we actually sent the presents to her home. I don't even know how we were able to pull it off. She kind of knew that something was happening because there was only so much we can hide. And then she got to open the presents and she has since given birth. But I think that this was very, very special because this is a time where, it's a happy time in someone's life, but she couldn't have her friends there and she couldn't have extended family. So I think that's, sending the presents, ordering me. So that's what we've been done when someone is sick. I'm finding out, what they need and having it sent there. It's these little things that really, really matter. Yes, we need, and technology is a big part of like the coordination, but just letting people know that you're thinking of them gives them that feeling of belongingness. You know, I'm valued, or I belong, I'm valued, I matter.
Margarita, I love that idea. That's so much fun. Just thinking about how much virtual work I have done over my lifetime, because I had a freelance writing business for about 10 years, and a lot of my clients are virtual. I love networking in real life. I'm in Chicago, and there's usually a lot of that to do. But I realized that it's helped me extend my access to team members worldwide. And of course, you know, you probably hear my husband coming down the stairs right now. So it also lets in a little bit of life, you know, into sitting by a place that has the best Wi-Fi in your house to try to figure out that. But I think about, you know, I feel like I know Adam and Chirag so well, but I've actually never met them in person. And I bet some of you have had that too. And then I have a VA in the Philippines, and I have some clients in Australia and Canada. And I just am amazed at how most of my clients are all over the country, you know, and DC and just all over. And I just think about how what's helped me out a little bit is either being a business owner or working on teams that are virtual, which I do both, is I think it's been helpful to have set times, you know, strategies of when some structure for me about maybe I'll meet with the virtual assistant twice a week for an hour at a set time, or a client every Thursday, or, you know, different things. So I really like the variety more than, I mean, when I've done in-house, that's nice, but sometimes I tend to really enjoy having the freedom of seeing my kids and kind of controlling my schedule more, where you see people, but you don't have to be in every meeting. I feel like I have less meetings when I do this, so it's more to the point. But having clear goals, and then definitely some fun things that we do together, but then letting a little bit of life in has been something that I've enjoyed, just to see everybody's personality, like their offices and where they sit.
Can I ask a question to the group? How do you, I mean, like I used to feel that retreats and, you know, when you were able to get at least your leadership team together in a couple of bonding, team building, but also strategy building hours were important. And I just feel that that's really hard online, and also to keep the culture. I think that you define it, you revise it, you do it. So do you have any, particularly those that have been working in culture, do you have any experience on how to do that again? Because I think that we're not going to go back to usual. I really don't want to go back to big offices anymore. And I think that for the older part of my team, it's important to go back to the office. For the younger part of the teams, is not. Meeting spaces is important, but also having those moments, like days where you retreat and you build culture, you build team. Any advice there?
I did want to just say one thing. It might not necessarily be advice, because we have people who are really skilled in this area. One of the things that I have seen people do, and it can be helpful, but you just need to be mindful of your audience, is sometimes people do, you know, the virtual happy hour. Sometimes people might be a little bit tired and be zoomed out, but having like a trivia game can be helpful. I know that we had this fundraisers, and as part of the fundraiser, I'm not saying you need to just raise money, but what we did is we all prepared a meal together. So the ingredients were delivered to me, and then there was a celebrity chef, and my food tasted good. It didn't look quite the same, but we were all able to connect and cook over that. So, I mean, but you're right, it is hard when you're not in the room, but this way you can always say, you know, food and music and dance brings people together. For sure, food.
Well, Rita, you're really right about that, because a couple of things. So in regards to like bringing the teams together and to have fun, the thing to keep in mind is that what you're fighting against is called an era of isolation. And so although we may enjoy the individual work and be productive, the opportunity for the small nuances, the conversations that might happen in the hallway, on the way to the restroom, the break room, those personal interactions, we have to recreate them. So we have to encourage leadership teams to create their own private text messaging and to actually share fun stories, information, things that are happening during the day, things that you might normally notice if you were present and could see folks. Try to create that. We also really work with the senior leadership group to make sure that they are interacting one-on-one as well as one-on-many. And it takes work. It's not going to be easy. The one thing that we found is that when we were doing a lot of in-person activities, you could have a boss who wasn't that good at personal relationships, and they didn't get discovered as well. Why? Because other people were filling in the gaps for the relationship and kind of excused it and go by. But those individuals, those supervisors and leaders and bosses who do not fare well don't survive in this virtual world, because although they're happy that they don't have to deal with people, people further retreat from them. And so one of the activities, and Rita, you were so spot on with that, is I think it was Margarita, sorry, is to involve the senses in the activities. And so you have to look for sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste, because that's how we create our experiences and the value of our experiences for that. So sending popcorn, for instance, to team members and having people open the gift and sharing it at the same time and have that surprise, that sort of little element that something special is happening. And you get that taste sensation, the smell, you get the touch, you get the tactile experience, which is so important in learning and our experiences. And then there's one more sense that I'll talk about before I close out, and that is something that's called our spatial sense, or the sense of space. And it's how our brain actually creates a sense of where we are and how it understands relationships. And so what happens is when we have the three-dimensional interaction with a body, with a person, our brain judges the space we are between them. It creates the relationship, it makes registrations in our brain. However, what we relate to now are images, flat images on a screen. And so it changes the dynamics a little bit. You can't see the nuances of the body language. For instance, I'm speaking and you don't know that I'm smiling and I'm using my hands, and they're all over the place like normal, and you would see those interactions, and that would add to the experience. So you lose that. So you have to make up for it somehow. And sometimes it requires the leader to be even maybe a little bit more animated when on the phone or when communicating through some sort of electronic means to actually really bring that bonding and that information together. And so those are just some of the things that I would offer as suggestions.
Love those suggestions. Something to just add, a couple of things that we've done. So for a couple of our school fundraisers, what worked really well are sort of these virtual wine and cheese tastings. So exactly as Dr. Troy mentioned, where, whoever would sign up for it would get sent the identical bottles of wine or cheese samples, and everybody would unpackage these presents, so to speak, at the same time. So they'd have that sense of mystery, that sense of allure, and that sense of discovery all at the same time. And sort of that would be something that was quite effective. Something else we've done is we've actually helped a couple of clients do a couple of virtual team retreats, because they wanted to mimic the sensations they had by not going away. So a couple of things we did with them. One of them was around the world in 2 hours, because it was a 2-hour retreat, and basically that was like just a cultural experience. They were trying to really bring together different cultures, explore the different diverse nature of their teams, which they hadn't been able to do because of the fact that we're all isolated right now. So everybody had a bit of homework beforehand, where they were sent a piece of music from just different areas, and they had to do some homework on what that music reminded them of, whether it was a childhood memory, whether it was a color, whether it was a part of the world. And then they were split depending on what it was, whether it's music, whether it was another concept. They were split into breakout rooms, and then they would be in these breakout rooms for quite a long period of time to just chat. There would be no necessarily agenda there, not like a structured, okay, we're going to do this, and 2 minutes later we're going to move on. It was just a chat. It was full of laughs. It was full of people discovering their inner selves, talking about different experiences, and it worked really, really well, because that was almost like again, another example that Troy mentioned, like that 15 minutes before meeting starts is what we try to mimic. So we try to mimic that small talk, that banter that people build up before the formal agenda starts. And that really helped them break down barriers of people just getting to know each other a bit better. And then once they let their barrier, their guard down, the conversations and then the ideas flowed. So that was for day one. Day two was the idea flowing, because now the team started to really open up and know each other better. The second day, it was just so much easier to say, okay, here's like almost like an escape room type of puzzle where they had to come together and solve a problem together. But they were so much more equipped and able to do that because of the first day's exercises. So they're just a couple of things that worked well for us.
So you do actually send physical presents, popcorn, cheese, or whatever it is, to people that virtually will open it at the same time. And that's a common practice, and I don't know where I was living, right?
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I've noticed that everybody's talking about sending wine, cheese, all these other things. I mean, I feel like most of the people here have my address. I haven't received anything. I didn't know what's happening. Like, I'm just saying, like, I like it. I like wine and cheese, too.
You didn't get that virtual package I sent you, Adam?
Thank you. Yeah, it's still in virtual reality, right? I got you. No. So let's I want to switch it up a bit. So we spend a lot of time on culture, which obviously we can continue talking about that, but I do want to spend some time maybe on the technology aspect. So I mean, for us, we're obviously we use like Zoom. We have our CRM, Zoho. Our normal day-to-day tools like your Hootsuite and all these other things. Like any tips or any kind of things out there that people are using that they really like technology-wise that's made a difference in their companies?
This is a great big pause. I guess my real answer is I've used them all, and it's a case of picking the least bad. I've used Zoom, we use Teams all the time. We have customers use Blue Jeans. We have customers use Google Charm, now Clubhouse, WhatsApp. It's just all over the place. I've yet to find something that people look at and say is great. Our main communication tool internally is Teams, and we have a lot of channels. It's kind of like Slack, if you guys have used Slack before, which is what we used to use. And it does help quite a bit in a couple ways, which kind of goes back to culture a little bit. Certainly for each team that's on a project or engagement, you'll look at that channel and they might as well be just sitting right across from each other talking, because there'll just be this constant stream of messaging. But then we have channels that are just fun channels. We have like a science channel, and there's a Star Wars channel, and there's a politics channel, which is the fun one, and the humor one, which is a fun one. The politics channel has a big, disclaimer like, if you're going to be in this channel, you can't get offended. So we use it for culture, and then of course we use it for collaboration, which is meetings and like Zoom and that kind of stuff. But still, I've never found any tool at this stage, I'm curious if others have, that people use and go, this is awesome. It's always like a part of it's okay, and then these other parts really annoy you. But Teams is our main way of doing it. Then we use GoToMeeting and other tools for virtual training, and then various, like you said, Adam, just various all kinds of other tools that are just software-based collaboration tools.
Todd, I wanted to kind of second that, as if I could. I think what has happened is this just incredible rush to want to catch up to technologies that some of these companies, not yours in particular, but probably maybe should have had already. And so that, your tech departments are going a little bit in hyperactive mode where, now you got 5 different overlapping, duplicative sort of a platform. Weaning people off of Skype as just a quick way to message each other, and then forcing them to go into, an Asana or the different, ClickUp or whatever it might be. People, it's really hard, as you probably know, to get people to change their behavior when they become very comfortable with one particular platform. And I also could not agree with you more, Todd, that it's incredibly just a bit of a pain in that every vendor, every strategic partner, every client, everybody seems to want to use their own video conferencing. And my whole philosophy always was make it as idiot-proof, simple, one press of the thumb, they're scattered, they're running from one meeting to another. Don't make our clients type in a 20-digit meeting ID number, then a PIN, then announce yourself, as simple as possible. So I guess my point is I agree with Todd. I don't think there's anything out there that's the magic bullet panacea of platforms everyone claims to be. And I think what's happened in this COVID year is that we almost now have platform overload, where there's all these great enabling workflow tools to where they all kind of overlap. And it's just getting, like you're over Zoom, you're over platform. Not to be negative, but I think there's a little bit of that going on for the, and I'm a tech guy, and you guys probably are too, but for the lay person who's maybe not as quick to embrace a new technology or user interface or something, it's a real struggle for folks.
I really agree both Todd's and Kurt's points. I think most people have their own sense of preference, I would say, on what kind of platforms they like to use to be able to be productive, to be able to communicate. And especially working in this virtual space, you need a lot of communication because you don't see them, you don't see the body language. So people sometimes need to talk a little bit more, type a little bit more. And sometimes it's a challenge for people who are a bit more introverted, who don't really like to type things. So in our team, we use a lot of our WhatsApp group to be able to communicate some things or to talk a little bit more deeper conversations, or there are things that needs us to be able to talk on the phone and things like that. But in terms of official work, we would use Asana and Slack. But I think we need to have a balance of different kinds of channels to be able to make the team work depending on who are on your team. I think that's what I see. But in terms of working with bigger corporations or multinational corporations here in Malaysia that we work with, I realize that the bigger corporations somehow just choose one channel and expects everyone to do it. But I think in a more nimble team members or smaller companies like mine, we tend to use a few to make things work. Like, for example, there's a big telco that's one of our clients. They use Microsoft Teams. Fully that and nothing more than that, and they expect us to work on Teams as well. I mean, because they're a client and we could do that, but I just want to echo those two things. And I'm also in search of something that a technology or a platform that can actually be used for every single point that we do business, we do work for our clients, and also communication. And I really want to emphasize more on the communication part so that nothing is lost in translation and it won't cause any backlog in terms of work or miscommunication and things like that.
All right. So this one, just throwing this out there for the floor. So any management tips? Like, I think for the management and people that are overseeing people in a workforce, this whole shift from, and I don't mean from the culture standpoint, I just mean from the literal day-to-day management. We talked about culture a bit. So I mean literally from the day-to-day management, when you can't see your employees, you don't maybe know everything that's going on, and you maybe have some expectations for work that is either coming in on time or too fast at not the right quality, or just the normal day-to-day management things. Any tips out there on that?
I'm a big believer in scheduling everything. I think just generally managing days is just harder in quarantine because you've got so much more to balance. I mean, personally, not just balancing work, but I have 2 small kids, so balancing their homeschooling schedules as well. It's quite an effort, and a lot of the days need to get shifted around. So I think from my own personal perspective, just managing that, I just use my calendar and meeting requests for everything I do, and try to keep certain times in the afternoon flexible, because I know that's a time that sometimes I'm a bit less available than other times. And that's certainly what's been working for me over the last few months.
Well, I have one that is not very popular, but I'm going to say it anyways. I do think that as a manager, it's much harder to manage virtually. So what we needed to do after so many months of, of having a feeling that there are people that work really well on their own without supervision and management, but some people that didn't. So we had to actually fire someone from the team to set an example of saying, like, look, after 3 times when we were looking at underperformance, we're going to start taking measures, because we're not going to set up a different culture of micromanagement just for people that are using virtual work as an excuse not to work. So this is results driven, and but you also need to be motivated. So I know it's not very popular, but I think that it set an example. It set the tone for everybody to know that it is it is necessary to deliver, even if you don't have the physical management. You know, like if you have more chances to basically don't do.
Well, we've had kind of the opposite. I mean, but again, maybe I'm biased just because we started Wintellect that way. It was virtual from the beginning. I can't actually think of a time when we had the problem of somebody, not working hard because they were at home. It's much more the opposite for us, and maybe it's a kind of nerd techie thing. When you have somebody at home, the kind of people that we have, what happens is, since they don't have to get up to drive home or drive to the office, they can sit in their underwear all day and code till 2 a.m. in the morning. So they do, and we highly incentivize them. They have a really unique comp plan that we have here to get bonus for overtime hours if they want. They get paid well no matter what, but when they work overtime, they have this kind of accelerated overtime rate. But in terms of management, it's just been the way we've always done it. It's, web meetings, it's email, it's, as messaging apps, whether it's Slack or Teams. For the nuts and bolts of it, we use those software tools that kind of Adam was talking about. In our case, it might be something called Harvest that we use for time tracking and management. It'll be dynamic CRM for sales, where we track all the emails and all the communication. You just click a button, and if you want to see what's going on, you can go right into CRM and see the email threads and the documents and that kind of stuff. And then we have a regular, just normal cadence of meetings. We have, marketing meeting every week, a sales meeting every week. We have a pipeline call every week. We have a project staffing meeting every week. And we're really all constantly talking. The only, I would say, people we have to worry about in terms of the remoteness management part, and it's not worrying about what they're doing. It unfortunately goes back to culture, which I know Adam wanted to get off to, but there's people that will be like a single person on a project, which isn't a problem if it's a week or a month or two, but every once in a while you have somebody that's on a project for a year, and it's just them, and they can kind of get lost. So we try to work on that, on not letting anybody kind of fade into the background. But other than that, it's just normal management stuff, cadences of meetings and software tools like Teams or Zoom or whatever. We use Teams, as I said, and we don't really have any problems. It was really interesting. I'm kind of lost in our own world of that being normal to us, because when the pandemic hit, I had multiple customers and multiple friends of mine that were the kinds of companies where everybody goes in the office. Right. And the thinking is, and I think it's valid, hey, get people in the office, create that camaraderie, create that sense of connection. There's no doubt that that's true, but they weren't set up to be remote, and they couldn't actually even do the project work, and they didn't have computers at home, and they didn't have the infrastructure to manage those computers or to manage web meetings, and they didn't have an infrastructure to do whether it's Zoom or Teams or anything. So they had to set all that up, and they really suffered. And some of them ran a business. But one thing we haven't really talked about, although we're all alluding to it because you can read articles about it, is the world has definitely completely changed. If the pandemic were over tomorrow, 100%, the world is not going back to full-time at the office. I mean, you have people like Microsoft, I've seen the internal meetings go around, where they are closing down offices, not because they're doing bad. Microsoft's doing incredible right now, but they're putting out internal notices going, we don't expect to ever have you be coming back into the office again full-time like normal. This is how we're going to do it going forward, because we've seen it's all working, and we're growing at 17% a year or something like that. So, this is the new world, and everybody's going to be doing that, which is, I think, kind of a cultural, sociological, economic, business revolution that I don't know if people are getting now, but this is how it's going to be.
And Todd, you're so right about the change in the way the virtual world will be, because prior to March of 2020, about 6% of the population would be considered a remote worker. And during the time in this past year, more than 65% of workers became remote. And the opportunity after things may tend to another year, looking at somewhere between 25 and 45% of those, of workers to continue to be somewhat remote. I mean, so you're looking at an upward of 400% increase in that. So the skills for managers to deal in this virtual world need to be as sharp as they were when you dealt in the personal world. And really the opportunity here is just to create an application. If you walked around by management, you find a way to walk around virtually. It's just that you need to do that. And what happens is you get distracted when you're by yourself and you don't think about it, because again, it's that air of isolation that you're fighting. So really those are the tics and the trips and the techniques that you do are pretty much the same ones you did before. If you inspected work physically, you find a way to inspect it electronically and then have whatever conversations you need to have.
So I had to set more boundaries at the beginning for some people that were working for me that were newer in the workforce. I had a sales guy that would email me, or not email me, he would text me some breaking news thing or lead on Saturday night during my date night, even though I was at home, but or 10 o'clock at night, and I would be trying to go to bed, and I would have to say to him, just email me, right? Like, I'm going to see it. I might see it on my phone, a text, but if you just email it to me, I'll just look at it on Monday, and just kind of setting more clear boundaries about what I would be reviewing, when I would be reviewing it, and expectations. And also if somebody, when I had another VA before the one I have now, and we had automatic check-ins on some of the programs, like Basecamp. And you guys are right, but I have all of those programs, right? Like Teams, everything, right? Zoom, everything, Basecamp, Slack, blah, blah, blah. And you just have to have them if you have a variety of clients, because they want to use one of them, and you have to be available to use it whenever they want it. But it was so interesting to kind of see, I could just tell something was up, and it sounded like he wanted to start his own business and have me as a client versus the agency I'd hired. And I wasn't really interested in that. But it just seemed like it was taking so long for certain small tasks to be done that I think you have to kind of just be more cognizant of everybody's time when you're managing them about, this should take about this amount of hours, like when you're budgeting projects, and think about, like, is that reasonable? And then check about, are they being responsive? Are they making an effort? They don't have to go completely all out, and I wanted to say earlier, I absolutely love that idea about popcorn and the other senses and smells. And I am so impressed that you guys did that. And it reminded me of a board meeting I had for Publicity Club of Chicago, where they sent us all cocktails, like a cocktail of our choice. And we all opened it up together and had like a toast. It was at the end of the year. And it really was fun. I was shocked at how fun that little effort was about everybody having the same kind of cocktail and sharing it. So I'm just impressed with all these ideas that you guys have.
All right. So, we try to keep this to an hour and 15 or so. Is there anything else? Because we definitely, the idea for this is really, we're going to be doing these weekly. We want people to come back. We want to make sure, and, we'll have different topics, different things for people to talk about and to speak on, but we also, we're respectful of time here. Is there anything else that anybody wants to get, maybe as some closing words and some best practices or tips, or just something else that they want to get out that maybe they didn't get out so far on today's topic?
I want to say thank you. Thank you. This was my first event and loved it. It's great to actually just be able to talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So good seeing you, or I guess it's hearing you again.
All right. Well, definitely we'll be hosting more of these. We'll be putting out more topics, and you'll see it.
Yeah. Thank you, Adam and Chirag. You guys are amazing.